Greetings, guys. Welcome to a brand new episode of Redemption Forgotten. I'm your host, MrYazMan300, and join me once again is Joe Mertens. How are you doing, Joe?
Hey, how's it going, Yez?
Yeah,
Thanks for having me
from
back on.
yeah. For a moment, I was like, I wanted to complete your last name or not. Because I didn't say Joe because I noticed I took a pause between your first and your last name. I was like, when multiple people, but you know what? I think I should introduce you to the full. So, how you doing, Joe?
Doing okay. Enjoying a couple of days off here. Just got back into recording a new episode for my own show. So probably by the time this is up, that one will already be posted.
This is going on. What's today? It's the 7th. This is going on the 12th, the Sunday.
Yeah, yeah. I hope they have mine up and running before
Yeah,
then, but we'll see. It's going to take a while to
yeah.
upload. So,
So how are you since last time we met? Because last time we talked, we were
yeah.
actually doing a Zoom call, and you actually experienced you to something new. What was that Turkish animated film?
Yeah, that's some horrible shit. That's nightmare fuel. That is.
Oh,
But no, doing okay. I have since recovered, and yeah, no, I'm
yeah,
just watching some movies, playing some games. I'm still
yeah.
chipping away through Persona 5 Royal, and yeah, yeah, we're getting there. It's just a very very long game.
Trying to platinum the game?
By the time I finish it, I should. Yeah, I've
Mm,
got all the other little things taken care of. There's
yeah.
like one optional boss that I have to take care of, and I just need to make sure that this time around I access the third semester. But otherwise, yeah, that should be it. It's supposedly a much easier platinum than the original Persona 5,
Really?
which had a bunch of ridiculous stuff in it and just a lot higher difficulty in achieving a platinum. But
Mm,
I really don't care about the original because I want all the extra story and characters and stuff.
yeah.
So there you go.
Mhm. Yeah, because I own what's it, Persona 4 Golden. Did you play Persona 4 Golden?
Only a little bit. I've got to get back into that. That would be another good reason to recharge the Vita.
Oh,
But
I own
I
the Vita
actually,
and the Steam version.
yeah, yeah. If I could play that on a Mac without having to run boot camp or something like that, then I would.
All right.
That said, I just bought another game on GOG that I'm looking forward to playing on my Mac, and that's the remaster of Full Throttle because I love the
Oh,
hell out of that game. Oh, God, almost 30 years ago when that originally came out on PC. It is so much fun, and Mark Hamill plays a great villain.
yeah.
So looking forward to getting back into that.
And apparently Duncan Jones wants to make this into a movie. Because I think on Twitter conversation he's talking with what's his name, Tim Schafer. Because he was like, man, how he wants to make this into a movie, but you know how like some very complicated. Because if I'm not mistaken, Disney I think owns part of the right.
Yeah, I couldn't begin to tell you, but
Yeah, because
probably yeah, just because of Lucasfilm
yeah,
and then the connection with LucasArts games. Yeah, I guess that wouldn't shock me, and I think anybody taking a stab at that could be cool. But could you imagine if it was Kurt Sutter instead?
well I don't know if they want to work with him after the behind the scenes dramas with his stories. Like you read about it, he got fired from IMC for his behavior. It's not like anything like he was
Mm.
harassing. He was being basically a dick, from what I've heard. He was being
Yeah,
hard
but
on
all the
bosses.
fun stuff that he did with bikers in Sons of Anarchy, I would love to see, his
Mm,
take on a full throttle.
yeah. And one of the actors is playing Vin Diesel's dad in Fast 9.
Great.
Yeah, I remember I was like, this guy's supposed to be Vin Diesel. But there's a topic for another day, Fast 9. But I would,
Yeah.
but I would tell you about Fast 9. It ain't as bad as people say it is. I heard people say, man, it's one of the worst from the series. I saw it's like, it ain't that bad.
No, no, it's fun.
Yeah,
It's at that point being the ninth film, 10th, really, if you count the spinoff, then you should know what you're getting into. And it should just be kind of fan service at that
yeah.
point, right?
Yeah, that
So,
also. And
yeah,
the behind the scenes drama you keep hearing about the film.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
God, people are because I'm actually excited for the new one. They announced that the actor from Reacher is going to be in it. Him is going to be
Oh,
yeah, and Rita Moreno, she's playing Vin Diesel's mom. I mean grandma, not mom.
oh, Rita Moreno?
Yeah, she's playing Vin
Oh,
Diesel.
nice.
And if I'm not mistaken, people
Nice.
pointed out that she's actually about. There's an age gap between her and Vin Diesel, about 35 years gap. People think she'd be better if she played his mom instead of his grandma.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. But I'd say it's still possible. But no, she's an awesome actress. So that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. So what does this make her also John Cena's grandma? And I'm pretty sure John Cena doesn't have any
Yeah.
part. She's Puerto Rican, right, Lisa Morano?
Um, I don't know,
I think
but
she is.
yeah,
And I'm pretty sure John Cena doesn't have any Puerto Rican blood in him. He's the wise out of all of them.
yeah. No idea what his background is, but
Vin
yeah.
Diesel, I think he's
Uh,
ethnically ambiguous, if I'm not mistaken. Nobody knows exactly what his ethnicity. And also,
that I couldn't begin to tell you.
I loved Andy when he said that when they announced that Momoa is cast. I thought maybe he's playing because since everything's about family. I said maybe he's playing The Rock's brother, and he was like, "This would be more believable than Vin Diesel and John Cena are brothers."
Yeah, probably, but as long as it's just not being played by Chris Pratt because he's already playing everybody else. So
I mean, he has Samuel Jackson playing his dad now in the Garfield movie. Why?
it's also painful.
Yeah, and also we talked about Chris Pratt. I saw like a funny tweet someone I think saw. I remember who retweeted. He saw like an early screening of the new Jurassic World movie. It's like this is my review. It's actually the scene of Jeff Goldblum walking. That's a giant pile of shit. That's his review of the film. Yeah.
Well, I'll find out in a couple of nights when I see it myself.
The moment you
Luckily, I
see
only
a guy
spent like
on a, what, a
$2 on the
scooter
ticket.
and he gets eaten by a dinosaur, you're like, yeah, you know what you're expecting.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the camp like Greg Miller that enjoy Fallen Kingdom as sort of a good bad movie. I think it's fun enough, and I had a fun time watching it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I actually
But
enjoyed, but I was more disappointed with Fallen Kingdom because they had great ideas in the film, but I feel like they didn't implement it well. I feel like it was more of a
no,
disappointment.
not at all.
But
Yeah,
like because part of it, I think like they were trying to make the animal rights thing them. They were teasing it, and I was like, there's nothing to do with all the stuff that they were teasing. Especially now with the third act, which I hated the most. But I will admit, in this,
yeah,
I've seen like the deaths were very gory for a PG-13 movie, especially the guy who gets eaten. Remember, he gets grabbed by the end of the movie with the T-Rex. I was like, wow, that's a PG-13 film.
yeah. They leaned kind of heavy into the horror aspect in the last stretch of the film. That's for sure. But hey, as long as the new one is, some fun fan service and it's got some decent action sequences, some good set pieces. It'll be worth the couple of bucks that I spent on the ticket. I had like a reward or something from my local theater, so I
Yeah.
barely paid anything. And that's great. So we'll see how that goes.
And also, finally, the last thing, because I know people now, we're just 10 minutes now, people are like, why are you talking about Fast and Furious and Jurassic World? That's one last thing, because now in 30 minutes, Disney Plus is going to launch in my country.
Mm.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what they have. Maybe I might finally see Doctor Strange too, because they said at the end of the month they're releasing it.
That's right. That's right. If you enjoy the Evil Dead films, you will likely enjoy the new Doctor Strange.
I know it's in the back. I don't know if I show it to you. I have like the Shout Factory Collector's Edition of Army of Darkness with all the cuts.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because last episode
we spent like 10 minutes talking about was it Kylie Minogue and Dua Lipa, because what's his name? Kai. I keep giving people what's their name. What's their name? God, do I keep mispronouncing people's name? So yes, I saw Kai said he went to see Dua Lipa and he talked about how much he loved Kylie Minogue, and we ended up speaking about 10 minutes about his music taste and his history with music. He talked about Coldplay. What was it? The Phil Collins band, Genesis. Right? Genesis. Yes. I keep thinking of Tormented Genesis. Every time I keep thinking of Genesis. God, that movie. So anyhow, I think we should start beginning now before we start losing the audience. Man, and by the way, our episode for Man of Steel is going to be my most viewed episode on YouTube. 91, I think, views, I think. Do you know what's my most viewed episode on YouTube? Which I'm surprised to see. Batman and Robin, which I'm... 8 views.
Really?
Yes, I was shocked to see it. I suspect people might want to see it. Maybe it's because they over-talked about it a lot, people. Maybe that's why.
Well, and, to be fair, there's quite a stigma of people that just can't stand that film, to be fair. But, there's plenty of people that were kids when it came out.
I think people saw they want us maybe to see a trash the film, maybe make fun of it, but we did not.
I mean, it came out my senior year of high school, so I think I was maybe a little too old for the demo they were shooting for, but...
And for those who are now listening or watching the videos, like, man, you guys 11 minutes still haven't talked the movie. We spent about 20 minutes talking about bat nips and butt cracks in the movie for the Batman Robin review.
That's kind of part of the game.
And that's just we're still in the beginning of the film. We haven't finished. Do you want to know who was responsible for all of this? Can you want to guess who is it?
Oh, probably. I'm trying to think who all was on that one. Was it Andy and Kai?
Yes, Andy's the guy.
Okay.
And Lee was
so it was all Andy.
Yeah. Man, he was supposed to be on the Street Fighter review, but he got busy and he was like, on the Zoom call, he was like, I hate you. Who the hell recommended Street Fighter? I was like, who do you think? Boy, it even responded. I'm more mad that I watched the movie than I missed the show. I even told Kai on the next episode I'm going to make him, review the film, give us a thought before I begin the review. Speaking about beginning review, I think we should start talking about our movie that... why did I say our movie?
Have at it, sir.
I said new, like we're about to make a new movie. So let's repeat again. Let's talk about our movie of today's episode. Lifeforce. Now, this is a movie like I think I heard a lot of people talk about it, but I haven't seen it.
It's a movie, all right.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's mostly because I think I don't know, there's a wise, I think people they always talk about it because 2 words. Canon films. Or should I make it just canon? And of course, people who know the history of canon, you know about their background. Making low budget, action movies, like you got the Van Damme movies. I mean, Bloodsport, I think, and Kickbox is what made them popular, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, then.
Yeah, that kind of stuff was their bread and butter for sure.
And doing a rip-off of Rambo and what was it, the Chuck Norris movie Missing in Action?
That sounds about right.
Yeah, because they actually, they were making B movies and movies like this, because they were also getting big actors. Stallone was also started working with them because he did Cobra. I remember that was the biggest movie and over the top, and he was like, hey, we're getting movies. I think they wanted to transition, hey, you know what, let's move on to making big Hollywood budget and remove our stigma. We are the B movie guys, and we was like, hey, you know what, we have some 4 projects I think we're gonna be our most expensive and best produced movies, and these projects were Master of the Universe, Superman 4: The Quest for Peace, that's the title, right? Over the Top, the Sylvester Stallone classic, and finally our movie we're going to talk about, Lifeforce.
Yeah, Lifeforce, based on a book by, was it Colin Wilson,
Yes, Colin
called The
Wilson.
Space Vampires, which is a little on the nose for what the story is all about. But the story is that he was a famous critic of H.P. Lovecraft. He did not care for the man. And there was another critic who was much more favorable of him, who also wrote his own Cthulhu mythos, who basically dared him to, write his own cosmic horror. And so he did. And this was one of the books that he came up with. The book was set quite a bit far out in the future compared to
The
this
21st
one.
century.
Yeah.
Because
But
apparently, for what I've read, that was originally the plans to make it in the 21st century instead of modern day. Which I'll talk about what they
But,
made in modern day later in the review.
yeah, I mean, I like that they had this set in, at the time, modern times, just because it felt slightly more grounded for all the cheesy shit that ultimately happens in this story. But I definitely appreciated that. And it's a fun ride for sure. It was my first time seeing the film. I had thought that I had seen bits and pieces of it in my past. Turns out the only thing I actually saw was the cover of the VHS box at the video store when I was a
That
kid.
seems to be
and
like
that is
most people's response. Like they all thought they saw, but most of them is like, "Oh, we all know from the cover." Because that used to be like the
it was
thing
just
of
sitting there.
yeah. With the, I thought was it the old the 80s or was it like people most think about most of the covers?
Yeah, I think there's quite a bit of a connection with that. I always remember, before the big video store chains were anywhere near the town where I grew up, it was the little hole in the wall local video store that, a tiny little outfit, but it's where you went to go rent your movies. And just usually about one or two people working in the whole shop, and just row after row. It felt endless of films. And, just as a young kid getting to walk by the horror section and seeing all this creepy shit laid out in front of you, and almost daring yourself to see some of those covers because, when you're a kid, that's probably going to freak you out. I'll tell you, the 1980s just seemed famous for, during like primetime television, so like 8 o'clock at night, during the commercials, running ads for horror films, and the kind of nightmare fuel that when you're 5, 6, 7 years old is definitely going to keep you up at night.
Yeah. And how many of these movies that you saw that you got tricked by the cover? So it's like you expected something, you saw it, it's not what the cover was selling it.
I think the film that I was thinking of was a much later film called Millennium, which is I can't.
Isn't there a TV show with the same name with Lance Red?
No, you're thinking of the Lance. Yeah, it was kind of a spinoff of the X-Files in some ways. No, this was some TV show about or some movie about. I think it had something to do with time travel, but totally different film. That for some reason that film was what was stuck in my head, and this is not that.
Is this the one with has Chris Christopherson in it?
That sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah, because I can see that because it's the same thing. Because I'm looking at the poster at Wikipedia. There's an airplane in the middle, and there's like a light. And let me see. Oh, this is actually Fox. I don't know if they had people who worked on this movie with Lifeforce, maybe.
There's probably a connection because you can, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon the hell out of just about any film. But Lifeforce was definitely a fun ride. I would probably call it one of those good, bad movies for sure. I love Peter Firth. I enjoyed the hell out of him in MI5, which, the UK knew as Spooks. But it was always on like BBC America and other cable channels here in the States as MI5. And it was like the UK's equivalent of 24 back in the day. Just about their domestic intelligence service, MI5. And it was fun. Yeah. And he's the only actor who is in every single episode of that show.
So
And he was like the head of their particular division within MI5. He was great.
yeah,
He's a cool actor.
and so that's what I said. This film, like we mentioned, we talk about it, and it even like it's mostly my what caught me on this is not the cast, except maybe one recognizable actor whom if you see you're like, oh, that's that guy. We'll talk about who is it later, but it's mostly I think the caught me attention is the fact they kind of wanted very much this movie to be like the hit because especially with whom they got behind the camera. The most notable example is that was it. They got Tobe Hooper who coming, if not mistaken, he did this after Poltergeist. If not mistaken.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, because I have it right here. Let me check.
Yeah.
Yes, he did
I
after
don't think he did
Poltergeist. Like
anything else.
he took a 3 year, I think, break after Poltergeist to do this.
Yeah, based on how troubled that was just with his relationship with Steven Spielberg at that time, because Spielberg had a pretty heavy hand in the overall direction of that film.
I mean, he
to
wanted
the
to
point
do
where there's
Poltergeist, but he left, I think, to do E.T. if not mistaken.
something like
Yeah, but he went
that,
to
and there's a very heavy contingent that say that he basically did direct Poltergeist, and then there are plenty of others that are like, no, he had a lot of influence, but didn't actually do the direction. I'm sure the truth is somewhere in the middle, but
And that's
yeah,
actually kind of ruined his reputation from Tobe Hooper because, he had a lot of people to see him as the hack. And I think I read somewhere that one of the reason he did Lifeforce was to prove to people, it's like, no, I am a capable director doing this type of movies. He wanted to prove to people, his naysayers, that they're wrong.
Yeah, he had quite a bit of cachet from Texas Chainsaw Massacre because it was just such a unique style of filmmaking at the time. It feels
That
almost like a
actually started a
documentary.
slasher film. And
Yeah, well, one of the origins of it for
Yeah.
sure. And it was like something that nobody had ever seen before, and that it felt like you were watching something that was actually taking place. But yeah, it's a shame that he felt his reputation was somewhat sullied.
yeah, because because you talk about like that's Texas Chainsaw because one interesting fact about because every time when I think of Texas, I think about the new movies but how gory they are, and I remember like hearing people say the first movie wasn't gory because he wanted a PG rated for the first film, and people like, wait, with all the stuff you're doing, we can't give you a PG rating.
Yeah, it sounds surprisingly bloodless. But pretty rough still. But
He hanged the
surprisingly
girl on-
not
was
as
it-
gory as
was
people
it-
think.
What's it? The meat was the thing. He hangs a girl on the what's it called, the meat.
Oh, on a meat hook.
Yeah, meat hook. Again, guys, English is not my first language. I don't know some of the terms. Thank God I have someone like Joe here to help me.
I can barely speak it myself. So
I mean, we had Kai with helping us with our German pronunciation when we were doing Man of Steel.
that was helpful. Yes.
Yeah. And maybe we should have all the people from around the world whenever we review movies to have us translate the word because I remember when we did Batman and Robin, he was like, oh, this is the right pronunciation of how to say Arnold Schwarzenegger. But we were like this, but we can go how the way you pronounce it. So anyhow, alright, so Tobe Hooper, and then you also got even the writers, they got, what was it, Dan O'Bannon, who is best known for writing Alien. He wrote the script and even brought what's the guy's name? Dollar screenwriter, Don Jacoby, and that guy wrote the Frank Marshall movie Arachnophobia, and he also did the John Carpenter movie Vampires. He also did, I think it's a guilty pleasure. For some reason, Nick Scarpino thinks it's a bad movie, Double Team. I'm going to get Nick Scarpino to review this movie with me one way or another, just to prove him wrong.
Yes. Nick, blink 5 times in rapid succession if you're in trouble. Because I think that if he appears on that episode, he may well and truly be kidnapped by MrYazMan300.
And to be fair, we're 100 million distance away. I might ask someone else to do the kidnapping for me. I might ask Snowbike Mike if he wants to do it.
Oh, see, done deal. You got this in the bag.
All right. I'll make sure I get Greg. With Greg, I need to roast him some of his opinions of some movies. Okay, so we got, and also you also got the fact, even the towns, like we mentioned before we were talking on screen, John Dykstra, whom I think most of us people who are the kind of fans who know him as Chloe the Dad, he actually did the special effects for the film, and they even got Nick Malley, who did makeup for Star Wars, mostly based on for creating, I think I read somewhere that he designed, I think, Yoda in Empire. He also did the makeup for Superman, the first Richard Donner movie.
Yeah, they've got kind of a legendary effects crew on this film, and most of it's not that bad. Some of the vampire effects towards the end of the film,
I think that's when they ran out of budget, because that's the thing I heard. Because they were having financial issues at that time, because especially with they had to take away some money, spend it on other projects. Like you've heard about what happened behind the scene with Superman 4, how they actually had to run out, when we had to reshoot some multiple scenes, the same shot, like with him flying and coming to the camera all the time.
But the falling out of the budget definitely shows, because it devolves into a zombie film with just chaos in the background at certain points.
Makes me wonder if he maybe took Dan O'Bannon's script from Return of the Living Dead. It's like, no, I'm gonna use this one. Maybe the rejected stuff. It's like, do you guys have anything? Because I know that it was chaotic when they had multiple screenwriters come in, do uncredited. He was like, what, do you need something? It's like, maybe Dan O'Bannon. Because I know I think him and Dan were not in a good relation when they were shooting this film. Yeah. But he came back later for doing Invaders of Mars. So I don't know if he was still in a good relation with him or not when he did that film. Okay, so I think we should also talk about, the cast. I think it's mostly like people like you might recognize, like you mentioned Peter Firth from Spook. He plays Colonel Kane, and you also got Steve Railsback as the lead. He plays Carson, and then you also got Frank Finley. He plays the Dr. Falada. Matilda May, who plays she's only credited, you don't say her name, but they call her as the Space Girl. Of course, the most recognized one, you got Patrick Stewart. He plays Dr. Armstrong, and who's actually good, and even with the limited time he's in it, he's also great in it. Michael Gothard.
He's Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, you got him as playing Bukowski. That's the guy in the beginning of the film who plays, I think, I forgot what exactly his role is, but he was, I think, mostly associated with the crew. He was talking to them. You also got Nicholas Ball, who plays Roger Drebridge. Who was it? Oh, that's the guy, one of the astronauts on the ship. And finally, Aubrey Morris. He plays, I think, the assistant to the prime minister, who they report to him about the findings, what happened. There are a lot of people you might, with the exception maybe Patrick Stewart, a lot of people might not recognize them, because most of them, there's been actors who were like an up-and-comers. Steve Rails, like I mentioned, he just did the movie with Peter O'Toole called The Stuntman. He played, I don't know if you saw this miniseries, Helter Skelter, but he was Charles Manson in it.
I know of it, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah. And of course, I think the next year he made the movie where I hope one day we can talk about it. Maybe get you and Andy on it. Nuki.
Or we don't have to, or we just don't.
Maybe they demand, because if the audience demand, we might do it. But I might have Andy watch it just to torture him.
Maybe if you pay him to watch it.
Okay. And one last thing, let's do some housekeeping. If you remember, I showed you that the Turkish fine cinema from Turkey, the Adventure of Acela, and you told me that if we made over 1 million subscribers on YouTube, you're going to be part of the review. So right now we're about 11.
Supposedly.
We're about 11. See, God knows, it needs a miracle to reach the 1 million.
So I'm doing okay. Because that was straight up nightmare fuel. That's horrible, man.
Yeah. So like
Nobody
I said,
needs
guys,
1 million subscribers on YouTube, and Joe and maybe I might get angry because he told me that I'll do any movie you want after skipping some of the reviews. Like maybe I can get him for this one, and others to do this review. You guys heard 1 million subscribers on YouTube, guys. And also one last about the film crew. Henry Mancini, he did the score, which I would say I'm glad to actually watch the director's cut, because people who don't know, the theatrical, there's two cuts. The theatrical US cut, and there's the international director's cut. Because they edit, I don't know if not most of his music, and they replaced it with Michael Kamen's score. And I'm glad that we watched, and for those who are watching our review, we only watched the international cut. We haven't seen the theatrical cut, which
yeah. If you watched this film here in the States right now and you were trying to watch it for free, you probably saw it on Tubi, and it's the longer cut.
And for what sure. I'm seeing, there's all the cuts. I think I saw items that they're renting the international cut, the hour 15 minutes long, but I don't know if that's maybe the same or maybe it's an old data. Just make sure, if you guys are watching, make sure it's an hour 15 minutes long. Alright then, I think we should begin now. So
let's do it.
Alright, so it begins like within, what year was it, in 1985, right? It's 1985, because the reason I know this fact is important because what was it, the Halley's Comet, and in real life the Halley's Comet was already coming near, and what happened is that in the original,
that was their plan. Yep.
Yeah. In the original novel, it was supposed to be like just like an asteroid, field asteroid. But however, because the Halley's Comet was coming in, Tobe Hooper was like, "Hey, let's use the Halley's Comet and capitalize it on the event." I mean, a similar thing. I remember they did something like this. But I don't know if you remember the Arnold movie, End of Games, where they capitalized on the Y2K scare, because they released it in 1990 at the end of the year. That's what I felt.
Yeah,
like
Schwarzenegger and Gabriel Byrne. Yes, not the best movie in the world, but still a little fun.
Gabriel Byrne is what saves that film. That's a topic for another conversation.
Yeah. Oh, he's good. Yeah.
My God, don't make me think of that, the sex scene where he has sex with the mom, with the mother and daughter, while Limp Bizkit is playing in the background.
Yeah, I'm glad I blocked that memory out. Yeah. Thanks for that, Yaz.
I have it first because I saw a guy review the film. He talked about it. Okay, so what was that? Oh yeah, so this we're watching now with the shuttle called the Churchill. It consists of people from international crew. I mean, they're led by Carson, who's played by Stephen Railsback, and he actually they are going to study the Halley's Comet, and in the comet they noticed, like, what was it? An object, like a weird object in the comet. So it's like, hey, we should go and see it. But we go and see, and we see that it's actually a spaceship. And I will admit, like with the scene where you see the spaceship is going to the, and we should clarify, we saw that the international cut, and for clarification, the international cut is not in 4K, of what I understand. I don't know if it's on the 1080s resolution. I don't know exactly what's the resolution of the international cut. So if we might see us, people can say, man, this sound different how it looks like, because we saw, like I said, because the international cut, because I don't understand this, doesn't has a good strong resolution. Alright, so what was that? Oh yeah, so they travel to the ship, and I gotta say, actually, what do you thought of the design of the ship?
It's obviously quite phallic, but
they were going for the
still
alien because the route. I will admit, because the outside of the interiors, like I said, there's some that kind of look like they didn't age well, that specific. But when you go inside the interiors of the ship, and when you see like the bodies of like the creatures and the three humanoids, the space vampires, we later know them as, it's actually the interiors. I actually did like the interiors, how it was shot, and the way they were flying, and when they were, what's it called, the spacewalking. Mm-hmm. Yes, they were spacewalking.
Yeah, it all looks pretty good. Yeah. Especially for a 1985 film. The effects are decent. Yeah. Like we said, you've got a legendary crew working on this thing, so they know what they're doing, even with this fairly tight budget. It works.
And apparently, one of the people, because they were being hanged around, they were being floated, and one of them was wearing the suit that said, I think, Christopher Reeve's name. That was, I think, the same one that, because that's the same, I think, studio that they shot, what was it, the first Superman movie, the Richard Donner Superman. They had some, the tools, like, they were worn by Christopher Reeves. One of them was like, I grabbed, I think, my belt and it said Christopher Reeves on it. Just imagine. I mean,
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Even the crystal design, because if you notice, because I remember, like, the first Richard Donner movie, there's some crystallized design.
Yeah, very Fortress of Solitude. Yes.
Yeah. And of course, you first see like a dead alien body, like decomposed. You see that's back then, but what happens is that you start losing communication, and behind them a door opens, and you see like two humanoid creatures. Now we got like all of them are naked, like especially the girl, because you see like, and by the way, guys, the girl, she's most of her scenes she's naked actually. That's for people.
Yeah, this is very much a product of the 1980s. Yeah, you got to be sure in a film of this character to, well, there you go. It's very much on display.
Yeah.
I mean the chamber, which is probably mostly made up of matte paintings. It all looks very interesting still.
They use blue screens. I know a lot in the film, especially in the third act. They use blue screen and miniatures. What I remember.
Yeah.
So I've seen videos of the making, like on YouTube. You go and you see
and it works shockingly well. It's a very nice job.
Yeah. And so they see like the bodies, but you see like, I like that one of the parts he gets horny. It's like, man, she's so beautiful. Then they look at him. It's like, are you okay? It's like, oh, I don't know what happened to me, because which we see actually at tease we find out that they're being hypnotized by the vampires, because that's like their thing. Like they hypnotize people by seducing so they can steal their life force. So they end up stealing like all the face samples, and then they leave the comet. Now, if I'm not mistaken, it cuts 30 days later, right?
Something like that. Yeah, it's a while before they get back to Earth.
Yeah, it's a time job. Do you see like in the space station in the UK, and they lose communication with the ship, and then it's like you see like it's even floats. It's not going the way. It's not flying the direction they're given. It's like, and I do like is the fact that they immediately like let's send a rescue mission like this, but in real life, not mistaken, they would have to take some stuff like questions, stuff how to do it. Like you don't immediately do it like this, because I've seen it like I'm saying. A good example is The Martian, because it talks about how to do it, like how to see like the question, how to do it. But this one's like no.
Yeah, it takes them quite some time to get together a crew to save the guy in The Martian for sure, and far more realistic in that film as far as how quickly they could do it. They get a crew together pretty fast, and well, what did they encounter? Whole lot of ash and yeah.
And naked bodies.
Yes. Like you do.
Yeah, okay, so I mean that's the thing. I don't know if you noticed, that's one of my criticism in the beginning of the film. Like it moves very quick. Did it bother you, this one? Because I feel like everything is moving at the beginning, because I feel part of it might have to do with the fact that there were a lot of scenes. What I've read that the first beginning of them, there was a lot of spacewalking in the scene that they had to end up trimming to make it a little bit shorter.
Yeah, and that makes sense that those were the things that would be cut probably for pacing, and that's why the beginning of the film does feel a little bit slower. But yeah, this thing starts cooking right along, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, what was it? So they enter the spaceship, they see all the decomposed body, and the tapes, everything they see is being destroyed, and they notice all the three naked humanoids. So they start to bring them to Earth. Oh, and also, they noticed like the escape's pod is missing. Alright. So they bring the creatures to Earth, and they're talking. It's like, okay, what are we going to do? It's like, we couldn't decide that they're still identifying like the bodies. They don't know if all of them are dead, and they're saying that right now we're going to start dissecting like the body. They still will begin with the female. So you see like later, like what was it? The guy who was overseeing like the mission shuttle. Because I have their names. Dr. Leonard Bakovsky, who was played by Michael Guttard, and if people might recognize him, he was in For Your Eyes Only, the Roger Moore Bond film. So he's here, like, he activates the camera. He's looking at the scientists. They're preparing, and in one meantime, he's watching also the news. I think he falls asleep, right?
Yeah, he's a little distracted.
And tired, actually, it
and
looks like him. So he,
yeah,
and then so the scientists leave, and they leave the security guard with the female. And of course, I think, if I'm not mistaken, she used her sense to call him inside to seduce him, right? Or was he like he's just a creep trying to sexually harass us? Or
I don't know if he was just creeping or if she drew him in, but regardless, he gets an unwelcome surprise.
yeah,
Yep, because she is very much alive.
yeah, and she wakes up, and then she started. And then of course, but Leonard and Dr. Leonard, he noticed that the vampire, she has alive, and then instead of calling backup anything, he just goes there running.
Yep. Yep. And it takes him forever to work his way down all these different corridors and stairwells and all these different doors and everything, which kind of makes sense if this is like your super secret space facility where you're going to, do your autopsies on the alien bodies that you just found. Sure. I get it. There's going to be a lot of different protocols and redundancies and all sorts of red tape as far as, gaining access to these creatures. But also, it seems like in the case of an emergency,
you didn't press the alarm or anything.
Yeah, it's odd.
And of course, we see her like he starts sucking his life force, and then you see him like he turns mummified. And what's really funny is I talked to this. I'll keep this as a trivia for the end of the show. So she kills, and then Leonard comes in. He sees like the dead mummified body, and he turns around and he sees like the female. And then then Dr. Falada, who's played by Frank Finlay, who's also I think is a thespian actor from in England. Apology, I had to close some tabs. And
that's fine.
He sees actually, that the female's talking to approaching Leonard, and unlike him, he I think calls for backup to come in and stuff. But when he comes in, he only sees him on the ground. It's like, where is she? It's like she ran away. And then of course, it's like he tells him to spread the warning to find a naked woman walking. Of course, you see like
nobody takes him serious about that. It's like, okay, I think we got this, right, guys? Yeah. And not so much, right?
And to Falada's film, he didn't notice her power or anything. And so
yeah,
see what
yeah.
happened.
And still, it just kind of reeks of, okay, we got this under control, right? We're the ones with the guns. We've got doors. We have locks. We have guards. What's one little girl, right? That's kind of the attitude that you get from them.
But
what's she gonna do?
A character played by an 18-year-old actress. Yes, because she was 18, and this actor, because of the amount of nudity in the film, they had a hard time finding an actress to play her. And for what I've read, the actress was pretty comfortable at that time, saying like, "Yeah, I was comfortable being nudity." And apparently Tobe Hooper had to after one shooting, he noticed that there was very crowded. That he ended up, whenever he shoots a nude scene, he had to close down the set. Only few people were remaining, and said him and camera people, some other people, just to make sure that everything looked well for his scene, and not in distraction. Because I think was it? Oh yes. So I think we can talk about it later. So we see like the security guards. They get told about this, like what they're saying a naked woman. Then you see her like they try to stop her, but she uses her power to push them away. And then she uses, I think, her power to smash the windows. And you see her walking on the glass. And for what I've read, I think they used tape. They taped her feet so that her feet doesn't get hurt with the glass when they were filming this.
Yeah, because even if it was candy glass or something like that, you could still cut yourself with it. So, but it looks very convincing. Again, the effects are just incredibly well done for a film of this scale.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of the charm of this movie, actually, just how good everything tends to look for the most part. But yeah, she escapes, and to the amazement of everybody involved, she escapes.
And I find it weird that there was not lots of security in this area for a secret or place for space place.
Yeah, that. I guess I kind of noticed that as well.
Yeah.
But
they start bringing them right after she escapes, because we see that the other two vampires they came prepared.
Yeah. I suppose that's good enough reason to start beefing up security around there. Yes.
All right. So they begin just talk about what happened, but they said we should. They looked at the body of the security guard who died, who got killed by the vampire. Who's like, we should start dissecting his body. So as they're about to dissect him, the body comes alive and starts sucking the life force from one of the doctors. And then comes back and he becomes alive. And of course, the Dr. Falada, he makes the comes in like these guys are like vampires. Like, instead of sucking blood, they are sucking our life force to be alive. And they find out this creature, he woke up I think about 2 hours after he got turned, and they end up calling the Prime Minister's assistant, Sir Percy Hillstein. And then he ends up coming to them to show them what's going on. Oh wait, before that they also called the SAS engine Colonel Kane, because he came in to investigate with them what's going on, because he even asked them what happened, because I forgot to introduce them. Because this would introduce our Peter Firth character. He's investigating with them because he was also with them when we didn't witness the security coming alive. They go downstairs after the notice that the security he dies, and if he doesn't get life force, they turn into dust, mafia, and turn dust. And they also see the same thing happens with the other doctor who got turned.
Yeah, again, fun effects. I love how when they're all desiccated and kind of zombie-like, that they almost feel like puppets. I don't know. The look is very cool.
They had that in Mertens, because I watched that for the scene where when the security guard wakes up, they had people at Mertens, they were controlling him under the bed and how to
nice.
Yeah,
it works.
All right. So after that, there's okay, we have to spend a warning. They get a call that they found another mummified female on the ground. They notice that she's also that body's next. It's like, oh, now she's now clothed now, and then they take that body back to us and start waking up, and because she's also not losing the life force, she blew up, and then.
Yep. And I think it's noticed that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You go ahead and talk. I'll talk.
Oh, I was just going to say that her clothes had been stolen as well, so we know that the alien woman is trying to kind of assimilate and find her way somewhere. She's got some kind of agenda. Yeah. Little do we know that it's actually far more insidious and sneaky than we really expect. But we'll get there.
Yeah,
we'll get there. I hate to have to pause this real quick, but I need to take a very quick break. Okay. Apologies, but you'll work it out in the edit. I'm sure.
Magic, I'll remove it.
There you go. I will return shortly.
Okay. So if you guys are listening, we'll be taking a minute and we're coming back. And we're back, guys. Now, if you guys were listening, we had to take a break for a second. We're back. So where were we? We stopped talking about the film. Oh yes. They find a naked female body who's also been mummified from being sucked by all of her life force. They take her in to see her, because they find out that after 2 hours, the body start waking up, trying to suck the human life force. Now this one, unfortunately, they had to tie it up. She dies and blows up because she didn't get near the life force. And then later we see like the two male vampires. And funny enough, did you recognize one of the male vampires?
Not right offhand, no.
One of them is related to a musician.
No.
Do you want to guess who?
No, go ahead. Who is it?
Mick Jagger's brother. I think it's
Oh,
Christopher
that's
Jagger.
funny.
Yeah, I think he originally wanted Billy Idol to play the role, but he was
I remember reading about that. Yes.
he was unavailable, so they ended up getting Mick Jagger's brother to play one of the vampires. So you see, like the military this time, because it's not a hot, sexy woman, they end up shooting them, and they throw out the grenade. Now you don't see the body, but they come inside. They hint that they are dead, but it's kind of obvious that they're not dead because you see them like they try to kill them with the gun. They're not dying, but we understand later why we think they're not dead. But it's kind of obvious that they're not, because we all know. If you see, it's like, oh, they're still alive. The fact that they didn't show the bodies, etc. And the way they killed us was too easy.
Oh, yeah. It is definitely cheap.
Yeah. So after that, they get the call. They say that the Texas said they have found like the escape pod, and they open it. We find Carson is inside it. They bring him to the UK after they recovered, and they ask him about what happened. Now he tells them like that after they brought in the vampires to the ship, the people start acting weird. One of them, he smashes like the recordings and then Carson, like he knew that everyone starts dying, and he knew that it's all because of the vampires. So he said that I had to blow up the ship and skip with the escape pod to stop them from coming to Earth. But then they told them like the vampires didn't die and that they are still alive. But they think that he says that he might be connected to her. Did he repeat that he's connected to her after he has the dream, the nightmare, or before the nightmare?
That I don't recall.
I think it's after the nightmare, because that's how I think they find out about it. So,
yeah, that makes a little bit more sense. Yeah. I also think that, his story about what happened on the Churchill is it's very clear that something's being glossed over. At least I felt as much. But yeah, I don't. I know they're really trying to shoot for leading man with this guy, but I just don't see it.
And for what I've read, I think he was not, I think, this like a little bit cowardly like he is seeming, but in the novel, because I think the novel is a little bit different from what I've read. And like I said, I mean, maybe we might change our mind. We think he's the leading after we see Nuki.
And hopefully we never have to experience that, but go on.
Well, if the public, like I said, if the public demanded it, we have to do it.
Sure.
Well, so it was like the fact that he went from a year later from Lifeforce to Nuki is actually, I'd love to ask him like what was his experience shooting Lifeforce, then the year later doing Nuki.
Could have been worse. Could have been Mac and me.
Well, you want him to be the guy in the wheelchair?
I want none of this. I'm good with that. I'm fine.
I'm pretty sure. Well, you know what? I think the main reason, also like that, when the main reason we create this podcast mostly to torture Andy and the rest. Yeah, so it was like, oh yeah, so I think after that he starts sleeping and he has the nightmare where she comes to visit him in his dream. And then after he wakes up, people like, she came to him, it's like it felt very real. And what happens that Dr. Fall said, I'm going to hypnotize you. Maybe he believes that my guys might be, they might be connected. So they have now hypnotizing him, and he tells him that she has taken control of body of another woman, and she's actually sort of, like she said that she didn't suck all of her life, or that nobody would did to find the bodies, that people would, she didn't have at least control over them, so that at least they would not suspect where to find the body. So they find, like, was it a woman, she goes inside a car to find the car and the model. And, what's his name? Kane. He calls it. He tells them like, find this car and the model. He gives them the license plate and the model. And after that, they get called. They say that, oh yes, they found the guy. He said they dropped him at the, if I'm mistaken, mental institute, right?
Something like that. Yeah, sanitarium or something.
Yeah, that's where we get introduced to Patrick Stewart's character, Dr. Armstrong. And of course, he
very young.
Yeah, pre-Picard.
Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, pre-Picard. That's actually.
Let's be fair. Patrick Stewart has always looked like an old man, but yeah.
And he's and I'll say this: Patrick Stewart, even with his limited screen time in this film, he's also amazing. And I think he even said that he liked working with Tobe Hooper on the film. I think I might have mispronounced his name. I said Todd Hooper instead of Tobe Hooper. So if you guys might hear me saying mispronounced, I apologize. Okay. So he said that he liked working with Tobe Hooper in the film, and he tells him like that. Oh yes, I know who this person. She's a nurse. He tells him like she's now in her room. It's like Kane and Carson, they end up going to meet her. And Carson started attacking. She's still here. I'm gonna find her. Because he started to get, because of her psychic connection to her, because he was trying to find where she. He said that after they come there, he said we found out she said that there's a criminal with a birthmark. He described the birthmark in the face. Patrick Stewart, who's playing Dr. Armstrong. So he tells him like, oh, that's the prisoner. He's a child killer. I can take you to him. And he tells him, by the way, we have to drug him with this because he might wake up and start freaking out. As they enter inside, instead, who grabs that? Oh yes, Carson. And they drug Dr. Armstrong. It's like they ask him why. They said, Carson tells them like I felt her inside of him. So they take Dr. Armstrong to his room, and they tell like his one of the nurses to bring like the drugs, because in order to communicate with the female vampire. And he starts talking to her. It's like, now, am I making, what was the dialogue between him and the female vampire? Yeah, remember
I'm sorry, say again.
What was the dialogue between Carson and the female vampire when she's taking over Patrick Stewart, her body?
I can't remember the line here, but yeah.
He asks us like, why did you pick me? He's just like, you don't remember. It's like she tells him, I just remember, but she said that the reason she looks like her because she did they based their look, the shape shift, that she based look on their fantasy. She scanned it, and she said that she felt more connection to him, so that's why she was able to change her look into like what fantasy that Carson had. And I will admit, I actually did like how the fact that you hear they mix Patrick Stewart and Matilda May. That's the actress who plays the female vampire.
Right, the voices are coming together. Yeah.
I mean, and I will admit, then this comes like one of my favorite scenes. Like Patrick Stewart, that's actually she tells him to kiss him, and she's actually in Patrick Stewart. Then we see Carson kissing Dr. Armstrong, and this actually is one of my favorites because if you notice, Patrick Stewart, he's willing to do the kiss. It's like he's like, I feel like he was really enjoying that. He really wanted the kiss, because I know that he's very open about kissing like men, because he's knows that he's seen like he sometimes he had posted photos kissing with Ian McKellen, and he even talked about it like on Conan O'Brien's like, yeah, I'm comfortable kissing men. I feel like he was comfortable, but then Carson was like, stop doing it. It looks like he doesn't want to kiss Patrick Stewart. There's reaction. It's more like. And of course, then you see like the Lifeforce started coming out of the body, and then Kane started, injecting this. Man, I think they killed him because of the amount of what is it? Is it morphine or is it?
It was kind of glossed over exactly what it was, but I think it was just more of a heavy sedative.
Yeah, sedative. We call it sedative. Like, well, I must have said it even by this Nick, because I'm pretty sure that's very dangerous if you do. This area.
Yeah, just a little bit, but it was done for dramatic effect. It may have been, a tranquilizer like Thorazine or something like that. They dosed him up real good. And from here, is this where they call him the Chopper?
Yeah, and also because when they were finding the life for because the prime minister assistant was with them, because he was helping them. He was like he's contacting the prime minister, sending messages to him and anything the way they can help each other. He also falls and he faints. It's like we have to take both of them in the helicopter. As they are actually walking the helicopter, they get and they see like blood starts coming out from the prime minister, assistant, and Dr. Armstrong. And do like the pilot, he turns on, he starts screaming, and then Kenan's like, "Hey, focus on the piloting, focus on the naked woman who's appearing from the blood."
Right, and this effect is really cool.
Yeah. I have not seen how they make, because I actually do want to know how they make it. That's actually one of the questions, how they shot this scene.
The blood and all the other stuff, the fluid and everything just streaming from these bodies. It's a very interesting effect. I liked it a lot.
Maybe they use optical illusions, like, because I remember the movie The Blob, because there's a scene where I think the goose starts crashing on someone. They say that for this scene they had to put the car upside down, and so that the liquid would come on the actor. Maybe I think they use something like that. Maybe they use
Was that the Steve McQueen or the remake?
The remake.
Okay.
The Steve McQueen, I know the remake, he dies in the beginning of the film. They do like the bait and switch. Yeah. What was it? Okay, so I think they might have used gravity for maybe they used cameras, like camera tricks.
That could be.
And also that scene, I was
regardless, it looks great. Yeah. it's
one
wonderful.
thing I actually do like about this, how doesn't use camera tricks to create special effects that's not CG, because they look very real.
Oh, and obviously they hold up well. Nearly, the better part of 40 years later, watching it on standard def on a stream on a 4K TV.
We're not watching a 4K version. We're watching, I think, a 720 version. We're watching it.
Oh yeah,
that looked good.
Yeah, very below HD levels of quality, and it still looks fantastic. That is the hallmark of a good practical effect. Yeah. Love it.
And I remember, they were coming also from their eyes, also the blood. That's and I do later after they landed, and because she escapes, and they tell the cop, what happened to him? He's dead. Of course he's dead. The amount of blood coming out of his body and his eyes. So then he tells him they find out that she was not. They find out that London is in lockdown, and that they find out that she had tricked them. She make them leave London said Deacon takes over the place. And then
it was all an elaborate ruse, and the city is falling to pieces. There are explosions everywhere. There's riots through the streets as these vampires, now that appear far more like zombies, are just wrecking shop in Greater London. But it still looks good. Even the Lifeforce energy streaming around the place. And I think we kind of missed a bit somewhere in here that they had detected.
Admits that what really happened in the ship. If Carson tells Kane that he's the one.
But also, is it after this point where we discover that the ship is now coming closer to Earth?
All right, stop, because they get told on the mic for that there's a call from, I think, Falada, because I don't know if this is before or after he got attacked by the alien. He tells them everything. Yes, he gets. So basically, you find out that the 2 million aliens they took over. Did they shapeshifted or did they took over the guards? Because I don't remember exactly.
I think they had, obviously faked their own death, but then I think they had just
take over in the
appear.
guard's place, and one of them went to Dr. Falada, but Falada actually, because he tells them he was able to kill him with a short sword he had, and he finds out that he theorized that the last time the comet came to Earth, because if I'm not mistaken, the Halley comet comes every 80 years, right? Something like this.
It's better part of 100 years, but
he says that this is how vampire legends came, because they said 80 years, this isn't the first time they came to Earth. The Halley comes to Earth, vampires come and steal the life force. He said that he found out a metal, from a sword, he found this their weakness. Their weakness, they really had to give explanation, it's below their heart. There's the life for origin was centered. You have to stab them. Can't you see just stab them in the heart? They have to make it different.
Yeah, and it's fine. Whatever. It works. And this weird, like, I think they described it as like leaded sword or something like that. It's a very odd looking weapon, but yeah, it's still interesting. Yeah, but we find out that the ship is coming closer and all that,
And we find out Carson, I think he confesses like to Kane, like what actually happened. He said that he's the one who broke rules, not the crew. That he actually she was calling him the whole time, and that he could not handle it. That he lets her loose, and all hell got loose. He said he was the reason everything happened. So they go out there to meet the prime minister, and you see that the prime minister himself also got infected by this. I do like that scene.
Yeah, I love this scene. It's what's her name? It's from Great Expectations. Oh, Miss Havisham. Miss Havisham, I need to see you. Just 1 minute, guys. I'll be right back. I swear, I'll be right back. I'm sweating profusely.
The moment you see someone is sweat, you know that, oh, yeah, guys.
And so he leaves the door marked private with this big sign on it, slightly ajar, and Peter Firth and Carlson there, they just kind of give each other a look, and they kind of peek in, and they see him just leading her behind the screen, and then you see in silhouette him draining her life force, and they're like, okay, we need to get the fuck out of here. And as they're going back through the office, back up to the helicopter on the roof, you see all these people just kind of, just mopping their faces and kind of falling out, and people helping other people get to seated positions and all this shit. It's like very clear that this vampirism is running rampant. And when did all this happen? That's what I need to know.
They saw a sexy female vampire. What do you think happened?
I guess, God, but just the way that things are, happening on the ground level with all of these space vampires now that have withered to almost nothing. They've got patches of flesh missing. I mean, they're looking very much like rejects from a bad zombie movie, right? And how that's all happening down there. But then the rest of these people who are in some way infected because they had their life force drained, are not even close to that kind of state. I don't know. It's a little confusing. Doesn't quite make sense. I'll allow it.
Yeah. I mean, so I do like when they were walking out, you hear like the Henry Mancini theme is played.
Oh yeah, the score is just pumping at this point.
And so they leave in the helicopter, and I do like that one of them, he comes in and King kills him with the flare gun. So after that,
the chopper pilot, he's just not having it. He needs to get out of there, and he's kind of freaking out a little bit at this point.
The moment he saw a naked woman coming out from Patrick Stewart and the Prime Minister's assistant covered in blood, and he already lost it. So
yeah, well,
what was that? Oh yes, and then they go like to a military area where they have locked down everything. They tell them that they have to go to meet Dr. Falada, but Carson he knows that he has to go meet the girl, and he knows that she's actually in the church, if I'm not mistaken, because I don't remember the exact area.
Yeah, there's I can't remember the name of it, but there's a
the light beam, because he sees the light beam, this light beam is communicating with the ship. He said that this was
and he also has his Carlson has a psychic link with her, and so he can kind of see everything that's happening, and he knows that she's there. But they got their 2 hours of quarantine first before they can talk with any of these officers. I don't know. I figure they could at least have had a conversation through the fence, but whatever. Yeah.
So he actually, he hijacks, I think, a truck, and he leaves to go to meet.
Yeah, off screen.
Yeah.
You hear the gunshots, but yeah.
Yeah. Again, like I said, I think they ran out of budget to film some stuff.
It feels like it. Yeah.
Like the fact we talk about that scene later, and then you see Kane's I think they told him I think he said he's going to meet Dr. Falada. He's like, I'm going. He goes there. King tries to meet Dr. Falada. At the same time, he's encountering the vampire. I mean, he sees that Valad has already been infected. He says that he tells him that this is the sword that you need to to kill the vampires. He kills Valada, and then he grabs the sword from the dead vampire. He leaves, and then he sees that this car's already been destroyed, and people are the zombies like creatures are chasing him. He starts running throughout the church because he sees this must be where he is. So you see Carson goes in, and he goes on to the. She tells him, "Come to me. Let's get together and finish everything." Kane, and he is about to intercede, but the last of the other male vampires comes in, and he tells. What does he tells him? I remember exactly.
Something about, this would all be a lot easier if you just joined me or something like that.
But instead he stabs him, and then he turns into the creature. And that's his true form, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear.
But then that this was supposed to be like the final battle. Maybe they were gonna have Kane fight him, but maybe they ran out of budget. And just stab him.
But yeah, instead the bat creature just disintegrates, and God, Peter Firth gets thrown down those stairs like at least 2 times.
And then there's the zombies are trying to grab him. He grabs the son. He goes inside, and he sees like he sees Carson and the vampire. They're both naked. They're making out.
And it's so weird. It's like she's still trying to drain his life force.
But I think,
maybe not.
Because I think that he might be a vampire, because we know that Falada said that they're not the first people who came vampire. Could he be like he's a descendant? He might be a part of.
And maybe that's it. It's very murky at this point.
Because, like I said, the ME said that the production was very chaotic. Like they didn't have a finished script. I think Tobe Hooper said that they didn't have a finished script when they were shooting the film. Like they were just chaotic because they had multiple writers comes in. I mean, the editor, I think, after the film got finished, he left to work on Liberty. He didn't come back. And what was it? So after that, as he was making out, Kane started calling out for Carson, and Carson sees him. He raises his hands for the sword. Kane throws the sword to Carson. Carson grabs, and then he stabs. Impels both the female vampire and himself, and this causes a chain reaction that causes the energy to travel into the spaceship, and everything, all the energy stops on Earth, and the ship leaves. That's it.
And honestly, I don't think this stopped or changed anything, him stabbing them. I think this would have been the exact same outcome anyways, because it seemed to be what everything was kind of moving towards, as the life force was being sucked out of the different, low-level space vampires out in the streets. They were all dropping to the ground anyways. I really don't think stabbing her stopped or prevented anything. It just happened as it was going to happen.
Yeah, because
I don't know.
That was a very confusing ending, because I will admit, it was like, okay, so what just happened? How did it stop him? Because I feel like
it kind of blows the dome off of the cathedral, and Peter Firth just kind of watches it all happen, and then the ship just kind of folds back together and leaves.
Yeah, it goes to the comet. I think maybe they were trying to set up. Don't explain. I think maybe they were trying to set up a sequel, because the canon that looks like they want to make like what said maybe like in the future, because they made in the mythology in the movie that the Halley's comets where they come every year. So that was Lifeforce.
Yeah, that was a movie.
With all the crazy thing happening at the end, it's like it.
It's a fun film. It's a fun film. It's is it a great film? No. But it's definitely a fun
out of all
film.
the canon films I thought, this is, I think, their best film. If you compare canon's catalog, this is their best.
I don't know. I'd have to look at an overall.
I mean, they did
list
do
just
one,
to
I
make
think,
sure.
good movie which had Christopher Reeves and Morgan Freeman. It's the one where he seems, I think his breakout. I forgot the movie's name. There's a scene in the film where Morgan Freeman is like, "I don't like listening to you or this bitch." And it's like, "Hey," he slaps her. "Shut up." I don't remember what's the film's name.
Think of that one.
Because I know Christopher Reeves said part of the deal is that if they allow Superman 4, he has to do this movie. I'd have to look it up. Because I think they say this is one of Canon's best film. So
Canon film.
So
here we go. List of the Canon Group films. All the way back starting in 1967.
see between something between everyone knows Peter. I think is it Morning Glory?
They did the Blood on Satan's Claw. That's one that I've been meaning to watch.
No, they didn't do it. Noises off. Street Smart. That's the movie's name. Street Smart.
Silent Night, Bloody Night.
The movie's called Street Smart. That's what the one I was looking for. I don't know if I heard of it.
Yeah, that.
I mean, this is one of the best reviewed films. I think this is also, I think, is Morgan Freeman's breakout role because he got nominated for Oscar for that film. His first Oscar. So I was looking about some of the interesting facts about Lifeforce. Where is that now? I think I have. So we mentioned like Barry Idol, like he was one of the actors who wanted for the vampire role. And
I think they liked him from the Dancing with Myself video.
Because I think he directed him in one of the videos of Tobe Hooper.
That makes sense. I think he did, because that's the one with all the zombies in it.
Yeah. Also, if I'm not mistaken, originally it was not. They wanted James Horner to do the score, not Henry Mancini. Mancini did only the score after seeing like the opening like 15 minutes of the like the spacewalk, and he's like, I'm gonna do it because of that. That's how they got Mancini to do the film.
Probably freed up James Horner to do his awesome score to Aliens then, which ends up getting recycled in film trailers for like a whole decade, 2 decades afterwards, but is just great. I'm looking at this list of canon films, and wow, there's some humdingers here, that's for sure. Including Superman 4: The Quest for Peace also, and Masters of the Universe.
I don't know if you know something, but one of the characters disappears. Or was it Leonard? I think because they don't show what happened to him because I don't know if there was a deleted scene or anything. Did you know? That's the guy. Remember who watches like the space film at the beginning of the film? He goes out to her, then the other doctor sees him. He tells him where is she? She's gone. He disappears. And I was like, what was that? And they say, oh, he's dead. He got him off screen.
That's definitely the sign of a budget that was quickly circling the drain.
Canon was going through financial issues, and it affected, I think, Masters of the Universe and Superman 4 the most, if not mistaken.
Yeah, and those were films that were released like a month or two apart from each other too, so they would have all been in production roughly around the same time. Yeah.
I mean, and the funny is that Hooper was not actually the first director to was approached. It was originally supposed to be the approach was Michael Winner. You just know him. He's the guy who did the Death Wish movies with Charles Bronson. He also did the original Mechanic. And like I said, and also apparently, I don't know if I can confirm it, but they say that originally Kane actually they wanted Michael Caine to play him.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
I mean, I'm glad they got Peter Firth. He works in the role.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think he was actually out of all he was a better lead than was it the male lead Carson.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You actually kind of halfway find Kane's character believable there with Firth.
I actually did like his chemistry with the actor who played Carson. What's it? Steve Railsback. I feel like they were good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it turns into not a buddy cop film, but the chemistry is decent. I just think the acting is far better out of Peter Firth.
Yeah.
And then, as far as the 3 vampires themselves, obviously they are very, very wooden, not just because of the characters they are portraying, but I think the lack of acting experience as well.
That's the first actor. The female vampire, she's what is it now? She's a ballerina, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they're just meant to stand there and look pretty. Yeah. That's basically their job. It's
supposed to be like the deal about like seduction, sex, erotica. That's why that was the theme I think of the film.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, And also one last thing before apparently the author didn't like the film, and there was another author who had his book turned into a movie. I don't remember. I heard a quote from him. I couldn't find it. So anyhow, he said that he would say that my movie, The Rat, is one of the worst adaptations of my movie. And then he wrote him a letter saying, yours is not the worst. Watch my movie is the worst. Because he did not like his adaptation of this film. And apparently he said the best part is the nudity in the film. That's what he said.
But again, like we talked about, know your audience. This is, horror thriller circa 1985.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna show some boobs and some butts. It is what it is.
I think now we should go now to our final thoughts, and we should score the film with this redeemable and unredeemable. Joe, do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it is a competently made film for what it is. It's got some amazing effects for a shoestring budget. I mean, again, big shout out to John Dykstra. The score is a little cheesy, but it's good. It's, Mancini, he's another legend. This film is built from legends.
Yeah.
And
the legend who gave us Ghosted and Tom and Jerry the movie.
Yeah.
These are his last two movies, Ghosted and Tom and Jerry the movie.
But ultimately, yeah, I mean, it's very watchable. There's a couple of decent actors in the whole thing, and they do a damn good job. So, yeah, I can see how this was just railed on by critics at the time. That makes sense. The other thing that's interesting to look back on a lot of horror films and sci-fi films from the 70s, 80s, and to a certain degree of the 90s.
Yeah.
And you look at the critic reviews from those time periods, and it's very clear that more often than not, they're being reviewed by people that do not like that genre. And it has a very, very negative impact on the perception of the film in general. Because many of them go on to achieve cult status, like Lifeforce. It does have a bit of a fan base. People do like this film. And I think we found something to enjoy in it. It's fun. It is a fun, bad movie. I am definitely a proponent of, people reviewing films that are actually fans of movies, that actually enjoy movies, because not every film needs to be high art or be great cinema. And if it achieves what it sets out to do, I think that's admirable right then and there. So yeah, I'm all for, people who actually like horror films, reviewing horror films, for people that actually like sci-fi films too. Genre definitely needs a bit more respect than it's been given over the past, 60, 70, 80 years. And I think that's really starting to happen with the rise that we've seen in the past 20, 30 years of, independent online journalists who, many of whom are, very well regarded anymore. They are Rotten Tomatoes certified journalists.
I mean, you're saying now experienced filmmakers now they're doing horror. I mean, Jordan Peele, he won an Oscar for Get Out.
Yeah, his directorial debut. The genre is getting a lot more respect. I hate the phrase elevated horror because
Scream?
That's bullshit. But ultimately, and then they do touch on that in Scream, yes. But that's a conversation that's been going on for years. But
I have to talk to you about some of this, the new Scream movie news. I'll talk to you later about it, maybe after the show.
It's that's curious to see what's going on there. But again, I think this is sure a redeemable film in that it is a fun, bad movie that is absolutely worth a watch. and there is plenty of joy to find in this film. It is not a painful watch like a lot of bad movies can be. It moves right along. You know?
I mean, I showed you some.
Oh God, yeah. Yes,
Nothing But
absolutely.
Trouble. That's the worst movie. You've seen that film, right?
Yes, I have. Yes.
God, 40 million. I don't think they gave 40 million to Dan Aykroyd. Didn't know what the fuck to do with it.
Yeah, Dan Aykroyd doesn't necessarily need to lead movies. He needs to be a part of movies.
And Jeffy should stop being a dick also. I don't know if he is. Maybe he's now okay.
He just always has been. Always has been. So, yes, what did you think about Lifeforce?
All right, so Lifeforce is what I can say about this. It's actually, I enjoyed the film. Like, I do admit maybe the ending I did not like. The scripts might be weak, but overall, I think the positive in the film outshine the negatives. The directing is good. I think the special effects, I mean, especially like in the beginning of the film and the middle, but in the third act maybe because with the makeup, with the zombies, but it looks great. And I feel like it had its great concept with ideas, but it's basically space vampires. And we talked about space vampires. The film was really supposed to be released under the title of the novel, Space Vampire, but Canon was like, man, people would think we're making a B movie. We have to change it.
Yeah, let's not say the quiet part out loud.
Right, so,
they absolutely were making a B movie.
I mean, this is great. The movie, like, I feel like this movie can deserve to be remade because sometimes people say, why didn't say movies? Why does it have to be remade? Like, we talked about Train to Busan. People like, why this has to be remade? I think this one, fits for a remake.
I think enough time has passed that if somebody had, an interesting take on it, a fun spin, you could make a very serviceable remake and, potentially improve quite a bit. Maybe if it were a little closer to the book, maybe set, further on in the future. And
I don't know because
I don't know
how was the reception for the book is because I don't think the book was that popular. I think they like kind of like the concept idea of the books. It's like, let's make this into a movie.
Yeah. I don't know. Perhaps we'll see. Big pregnant pause there.
Yeah,
Big pregnant pause.
I'm reading about the... apologies because I'm reading about the novel and stuff. I think part of it, I don't know if it's very different. I might have to read about it before. But... I'm pretty curious to see, like, I'm curious to who might end up choosing to do it. But this, like I said, I think I would love to see a remake for a reboot of this film. And for it's actually, like I said, it's a redeemable film because of the positive outshines the negative in this film. And I think this is it for today. Thanks, guys, people, for watching and listening. And Joe, where can people, find you?
Well, I hang out on Twitter a bit at Mertens, and you can check out my podcast, Murders with Mertens, on YouTube. Still far from that 100 subscriber count so that I can get a custom URL, but working on it. Yeah. Episode 10 on Mulholland Drive should be released in a matter of a few days. So, yeah. Give it a watch, give it a like, leave a comment. Subscription's always nice too. And by all means, do the same for MrYazMan300 here because we got to get to that million subscriber count. So that he can torture Andy and myself with some truly horrific films.
Or we cannot watch it, just sit there and laugh at all the torture Andy went through it.
Yeah, we're gonna do that someday, but it's good to have goals.
Yeah, like I said, 1 million subscriber, like Joe said, 1 million subscribers, and we'll review the Adventures of Achela. And like I said, you can find me at Twitter, the YAZMan300. For some reason, Twitter started to suspended my old account, and you can just make sure if you're listening, or you're watching, wherever you are, to like and subscribe and rate it and leave us a review actually so that we can get more audience and people to come listen to it. And I think that's it. Thanks guys for watching, listening.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And I'll see you guys maybe on the next episode. Bye.